I never thought I'd be the guy telling a story like this, but here I am. My name's Mark, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 10 years now. We met in college, had the typical ups and downs, but overall I thought we were solid. We got married when I was 32, she was 30. We didn't have kids yet, mostly because of some hereditary health issues that run in her family. We'd been trying to have a baby, but every time we got close, some complication would pop up. That's when we started exploring genetic optimization therapy, trying to increase our chances and maybe even fix some of the inherited problems. Initially, everything seemed fine. Lisa was always a little bitchy when she was stressed out, nothing new there. She'd lash out at me for small things, but I always figured it was just her personality. She was sharp-tongued, quick to dismiss my concerns, and never really listened if I tried to talk about her behavior. But I thought maybe that's just her way of dealing with stress, especially with all the medical stuff we'd been through. I wasn't perfect either, so I figured we fight then. Forget about it and move on. Things started to feel off about 6 months ago. Small things, really, like she'd be sneaking her phone around, acting weird when I entered the room. Then she'd get defensive if I asked who she was texting. I didn't think much of it at first, because she always said she was just talking to her friends or her sister. But then I noticed her leaving her phone unlocked more often, and I'd catch little snippets of messages that didn't make sense or seemed suspicious. It was just a gut feeling, but I knew something was wrong. One day I decided to look a little deeper. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something. So I snuck into her email account just to peek, nothing invasive, just enough to see if she was hiding anything. That's when I found it. The emails, the messages with some guy named David. They weren't just friendly chats. No, these were full-on flirty, late-night conversations. She was talking about meeting up, sharing intimate details, even joking about how good it would feel to be with him. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I loved, was sneaking around with our family's genetic therapist. The worst part, the genetic therapist, Dr. Carter, was supposed to be helping us fix our health issues. Instead, it looked like they'd been having some kind of affair. And from what I could see, they weren't just kissing and flirting. They had been doing more than that. I found proof of secret meetings, photos she sent him of herself, and even some messages about how her body responded better than she expected during their sessions. Sessions that weren't supposed to be about therapy. They were about something else entirely. It wasn't just betrayal. It was like she'd been using our family's genetic modifications as a reason to cheat, to explore some clandestine affair that no one knew about. I was in shock. I mean, I knew Lisa was a bit difficult. She always had that bitchy edge, and she'd lie her ass off to cover her tracks. But this was a level I didn't even imagine. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. The person I trusted most was not only lying but actively cheating on me with a man who'd been involved in the most sensitive part of our lives, the future of our genetics. I felt a whirlwind of anger, confusion, and deep sadness all at once. I thought about confronting her then and there, but I knew I needed to plan my next move carefully. Still, I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling betrayed in ways I never thought possible. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a train. My mind kept replaying the images I'd seen, her messages, her photos, the way she'd been so casual about it all. I couldn't believe I'd missed the signs for so long. It all made sense now, the late nights, the secretive phone calls, her sudden mood swings. She'd been hiding something, hiding a whole other life from me. And the worst part, she'd lied so convincingly I almost started questioning myself. Was I just paranoid? Was I overreacting? But deep down, I knew the truth. I decided I couldn't confront her right away. I had to come up with a plan, something cold, calculated, and precise. I wasn't going to blow everything up without knowing exactly what I was dealing with. I started digging more, looking into her emails, her social media accounts, even her calendar. That's when I found out about the gene editing sessions she'd been having with Dr. Carter. They weren't just casual meetings. They were secret, unauthorized modifications. Apparently, she and Carter had been working behind my back, trying to optimize her genetics for reproduction. They wanted a child that would be more compatible with her, more perfect. And I was just a bystander in all of it. Just a placeholder, a sperm donor. It hit me hard. I felt sick. They'd been tinkering with our future, customizing her genes, probably trying to find some way to make her more fertile or to increase their chances of having a perfect baby without my knowledge or consent. They'd been doing genetic modifications that could have long-term consequences we couldn't even imagine. I'd always suspected she might be a bitch, but this was beyond anything I'd expected. This was her trying to redefine our family, re-engineer our bloodline, and I had no idea. It was invasive on a genetic level, and it made me furious that she'd gone behind my back like this. I spent the day trying to piece everything together. I couldn't believe she'd risked everything, our health, our future, our very DNA, just to satisfy some secret affair with Carter. I started wondering how long this had been going on, how many sessions she'd had, what kind of modifications they'd done. Were they trying to make herself more attractive, more reproductive? Were they even trying to engineer some kind of super baby? It was sick. I couldn't help feeling betrayed, not just as her husband, but as her partner in building a future. All those years, I thought we were working towards something normal, kids, a life, some stability. Turns out she'd been trying to rewrite our genetic blueprint, and I didn't even have a say in it. I knew I needed to confront her, but I also knew it had to be the right moment. I had to catch her in the act, or at least have undeniable evidence. I started laying traps, checking her schedule, setting up hidden cameras in the house, waiting for her to slip up. All the while, I felt this gnawing mix of heartbreak and rage. How could she do this to me, to us, to our family's future? The more I thought about it, the more I realized how deeply she'd betrayed me. It wasn't just the affair with Carter. It was the fact that she'd been secretly manipulating our genetics. She'd been playing God with our bloodline, and I was just supposed to accept it. That night, I sat on the couch, staring at her phone. I felt like I was trapped inside a nightmare. I wondered if I should just leave, if I could even do that after everything. Or maybe I should expose her, tell everyone what she'd done. But I knew the fallout would be devastating. This wasn't just about infidelity. It was about genetic betrayal on a level that could affect generations to come. I felt lost, angry, and deeply hurt. All I could think about was how she'd lied, how she'd used her body and her genes as weapons or tools for her own sick game. I was slowly coming to terms with the fact that my life, my marriage, might not survive this. But I also knew I had to find out everything first before making any big decisions. And trust me, I wasn't going to let her get away with this without a fight. The next few days turned into a blur of planning and heartbreak. I kept thinking about how she had lied to me for months, maybe longer. Every time I looked at her, I saw a stranger, a woman I thought I knew but who had been hiding this entire secret behind her bitchy smirk and sharp tongue. I couldn't get over the fact that she'd been playing God with our DNA, probably trying to craft a perfect offspring, without me even knowing. It made my stomach churn just to think about it. I started gathering more concrete evidence. Hidden camera footage, screenshots of her messages with Carter, the emails about the genetic modifications. The more I dug, the more I saw just how deep her deception ran. She'd been sneaking sessions with Carter, unauthorized, I later confirmed, using our family's medical resources, messing with our genes, and probably trying to maximize her reproductive compatibility with him. I felt so betrayed I wanted to scream. She'd been doing this in secret, behind my back, trying to engineer her own version of a perfect life. And I was just supposed to sit there, clueless and blinded. One night, I decided I had enough. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine while she was out there, secretly working with Carter to modify her genes. I knew I had to confront her, but I also wanted to be sure, 100% before I made any accusations. So I set up a recording device in the bedroom. I wanted to catch her in the act if she had a rendezvous, or at least hear what she was saying when she thought she was alone. I remember sitting on the couch, phone in hand, heart pounding, waiting for her to come home from her work meeting that I knew was a lie. When she finally walked in late that night, she was tense, defensive even before she saw me. I played the recording I'd made. Her reaction was instant: deflection, denial, gasping for breath as if caught off guard. She started lying immediately, throwing out insults and accusations, trying to dismiss everything I had on her. "You're crazy, Mark. You're just paranoid. I've done nothing wrong. You're overreacting because you're insecure." She kept lying, but I saw through her. She was trying to spin it, but the evidence was right there. Her voice, her words, her secret meetings, everything confirmed she'd been unfaithful and messing with our families. Genetic makeup. I felt my chest tighten. Anger boiled over. How could she sit there and deny everything? She had been sneaking around, lying to my face and playing with our future like it was some kind of game. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her, to make her admit the truth. But I held back. I knew that if I lost my temper, I'd ruin everything. Instead, I looked at her with cold eyes. I told her I knew about the affair, about the unauthorized gene edits, and I told her I was done trusting her. The shock on her face was almost satisfying. Almost. Because beneath that shock, I saw the same bitchy arrogance that had pushed me over the edge. That night I stayed awake, replaying everything in my mind. The betrayal, the lies, the fact that she'd been trying to manipulate our genetic future behind my back. It all felt surreal, like I had been living a nightmare. I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? How did I miss all of this? But deep down, I knew it wasn't about me. It was about her, her greed, her obsession with perfection, and a reckless desire to play God. I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive her, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I had to make a choice, and fast. The next step was clear. I couldn't trust her anymore. Not just because she cheated, but because she betrayed everything I believed in: our marriage, our future, the very essence of who we are as a family. I realized I had to protect what little was left of that. The more I thought about it, the more I knew I couldn't stay silent. I had to act to expose her and prevent her from doing any more damage. But what that meant exactly, I still wasn't sure. All I knew was my world was crumbling and I was the only one left to pick up the pieces. Over the next few days, I kept quiet outside, but inside I was boiling with rage and betrayal. I couldn't believe how far she'd gone. Her lies, her manipulations, they weren't just about some affair anymore. It was about her messing with our DNA, our future children, the core of what makes us who we are. I kept thinking about all those secret sessions with Carter, how he'd been playing with genes like a scientist in some mad lab, trying to craft some super reproductive version of her, probably for her own vanity or some sick idea of perfection. I felt sick every time I remembered the photos she'd sent him, her describing how her body responded, how eager she was for him to fix her, to make her more compatible. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt humiliated, furious, and deeply betrayed. Part of me wanted to lash out, to call her every name I could think of, but another part of me, the rational side, knew I needed to get all the facts straight before doing anything reckless. So I kept gathering evidence, reviewing every email, every message, every detail I could find. I also started thinking about my next move. I knew I couldn't just confront her out of anger. I had to be strategic. I needed leverage, and I needed to protect myself and whatever was left of our future. I decided to talk to a lawyer, not because I wanted to jump straight to divorce, but because I needed guidance. I had no idea what her genetic tinkering could mean legally or medically, especially since it was all unauthorized. I also wanted to know what rights I had in this situation. Could I demand access to her medical records? Could I find out what modifications she'd undergone? I needed to understand the scope of her betrayal and how deep it ran. When I finally sat down with a lawyer, I laid everything out: her affair, the genetic edits, her secret meetings with Carter. The lawyer looked at me with a seriousness I hadn't seen before. "Mark, what you're describing is extremely complicated. Unauthorized genetic modifications, especially if they involve medical or legal standards, could have serious consequences. You might have grounds for a legal separation or even divorce on the grounds of infidelity and medical misconduct. But more importantly, you need to get a full genetic report and possibly involve medical authorities to understand what she's done and what risks that poses for any future children." Hearing that gave me some clarity, but also made everything feel even more overwhelming. I thought, What kind of sick game was she playing? Manipulating her body and ours. I knew I had to move fast before she did more damage. I decided I would confront her. Again, but this time with everything laid out. I told her I knew about the affair, the genetic sessions, and that I was going to take legal action if I had to. I saw her face twist into a mixture of anger and panic. She tried to deny everything, but I had the evidence. I told her I was done trusting her, that I'd be calling the authorities and genetic specialists to assess what she'd been up to. I wanted her to realize she couldn't lie her way out of this, that her actions had consequences, deep ones. She argued, of course, saying I was overreacting, that I was jealous, that she was still the woman she'd always been. But I wasn't buying it anymore. Deep down, I knew this was the end of the line for us, whether I wanted to admit it or not. Her lies had destroyed whatever fragile trust we had left, and the genetic betrayal, that was the nail in the coffin. I felt like I'd been played for a fool, used, manipulated, and now, potentially, part of some experimental freak show of her own design. I wasn't sure if I could ever look at her the same way again. All I knew was I had to protect myself, and more importantly, I had to stop her from doing any more damage. Whatever her reasons, whatever her justifications, her actions had crossed a line I never thought I'd see in my own marriage. And now, I was faced with the fallout, trying to figure out what to do with the wreckage that was our life. After laying everything bare and making my intentions clear, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Part of me hoped she'd break down and confess, that maybe she'd finally realize how badly she'd screwed up. But Lisa, true to her bitchy, manipulative nature, just doubled down. She started throwing accusations back at me, calling me paranoid, jealous, insecure. She kept insisting she hadn't done anything wrong, that all her meetings with Carter were purely professional, even though I had concrete proof otherwise. Her words sounded hollow, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. That trust was shattered beyond repair. I also realized that her manipulative streak ran deep, and she probably thought she could talk her way out of everything. But this time I wasn't falling for it. I told her I was going to get a comprehensive genetic report, and I was contacting the authorities to investigate the unauthorized gene editing. I made it clear I wasn't going to let her continue down this path without consequences. Her face twisted in anger, her bitchy smirk replaced by a look of pure defiance. The next step was clear. I contacted a specialist in genetic medicine who could analyze her DNA modifications and tell me what the hell she'd been up to. I also made sure I documented every interaction, every piece of evidence, because I knew this could turn into a legal battle. My mind raced with the implications. What kind of modifications? How deep did they go? Were they safe? Could they even be reversed? The thought of her messing with our genetic future, trying to engineer some kind of perfect child, made me sick. It felt like she'd betrayed not just me, but the very foundation of our family. While waiting for the genetic analysis, I also started contemplating my options. I wasn't sure if I wanted to fight for the marriage anymore. The woman I knew was gone. This new, manipulative, gene-tinkering version of her was someone I didn't recognize. She played me like a pawn in her sick game, and I didn't see a way back. I felt betrayed and humiliated, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. If I stayed, I was risking more damage, more of our future, maybe even our health. If I left, I'd protect myself and try to rebuild from the wreckage. That night she tried to spin things again, acting like she was the victim. She cried, yelled, called me insecure and paranoid. She said I was overreacting and that I was suffocating her. But I just looked at her coldly and told her she'd pushed me too far. This wasn't about insecurity anymore. This was about her playing God with our bloodline and lying about it from the start. I told her I was done listening to her lies and that I'd be making some serious decisions soon. I also warned her that I'd be going to the authorities to investigate her unauthorized genetic modifications. If she thought she could keep playing with our future, she was dead wrong. As I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the weight of everything, I realized something important. I'd been the naive, trusting husband, believing in the good of her, in the sanctity of our marriage. but she had shattered that trust in ways I never thought possible. My feelings of anger, betrayal, and sadness were all swirling together. I was angry at her, furious, but also heartbroken. The woman I married had turned into someone I didn't recognize, someone capable of playing with our very DNA without my knowledge or approval. I knew I had to get out of this situation, not just for myself, but to stop her from doing any more damage. Whatever the future held, I was determined to protect myself and the truth, even if it meant walking away from everything I thought I knew. In the days that followed, I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, defiant, angry, and somehow also pitiful. I felt like I'd been blindsided by a storm I could never have predicted. The woman I loved, the woman I'd promised to spend my life with, had been secretly rewriting our future, playing with our genes, and lying straight to my face. The betrayal cut so deep I wondered if I'd ever trust anyone again. But what haunted me the most was knowing she risked everything, our health, our genetic legacy, and our trust, for her own selfish needs and sick obsession with perfection. I finally told her I was going to end things. I told her I couldn't stay in a relationship built on lies and manipulation, that I was calling in professionals to review the genetic modifications she'd had done and to ensure no permanent damage was done. I didn't want to be part of her twisted experiment, and I couldn't be with someone who thought she could play God with our future. The look on her face was a mix of anger, contempt, and something else I couldn't quite place, maybe fear. She screamed, called me a controlling asshole, and accused me of ruining everything because I didn't trust her. But I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I filed for separation that week. I also reported her to the medical authorities for unauthorized gene editing. The process was long and complicated, but I wanted to make sure she couldn't just get away with it. I also demanded a full genetic analysis of her DNA, which revealed some alarming modifications, changes that could have serious health implications for her and any future children. The authorities confirmed she'd been conducting illegal, unapproved genetic sessions, and she faced serious repercussions. I felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. Relief that I'd taken action, guilt that I'd let it all get so far. The hardest part was realizing how much I'd loved her, how blindly I'd trusted her. I kept replaying the good memories, the times I thought she was my partner in building a future. But those memories now seemed distant, almost like they belonged to someone else. I learned a painful lesson. Don't ignore the signs. Don't assume someone's intentions are pure just because they wear a smile. People can hide their true selves behind layers of lies and manipulation, especially when they think they're playing God. As I moved forward, I focused on healing myself. I started therapy to process everything, the betrayal, the anger, the sadness. I knew I had to rebuild my life, piece by piece. I also became more aware of how fragile trust really is and how important it is to be cautious with who I let into my life. No one should have that much power over your future, especially not someone you love. Looking back now, I realize that despite the pain, I've grown stronger. I'll always carry the scars of what she did, but I refuse to let her define my future. I hope anyone reading this will learn from my story. Trust is precious, and betrayal can come in many forms. Be vigilant, protect yourself, and never let anyone play God with your life or your family's future. Because in the end, no matter how much you love someone, there are lines you don't cross, and trust is one of them.